Uh-oh. It's the big 2-0, I think. I don't know how we've managed it, but we've been doing this for long enough that we've managed to get to 20 episodes. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us again. And welcome to the Top Drive Show. Well, we'll do what we usually do and start with your questions. You may know the rules by now, but in case you don't, go ahead and leave your question in the comments section of this video and we will get to them next time. If you see a question someone else has asked you like the look of, give it a like, because we look at the most liked comments first. And the most liked comment from last episode comes from Stephen Geddes, who gets a carbon fibre pack for asking, why have you decided to make the challenges noticeably harder and prizes worse than they used to be? Asking for a friend.
Okay.
Asking for a lot of friends.
What's this about?
Right. Well, challenge modes, it's always been an interesting thing, right? Because you go, oh, here's a challenge, see if you can beat this. And we always have the problem that the spread of players' garages in the game is so huge that if you want to make something that's challenging for one person, inevitably it is completely impossible for these people and for these people over here. So there's always been this difficult thing about it, right? And we've been doing this thing where it's like, I think it was usually like if you'd beaten the campaign, then you could probably do it. That was like the general rule. And for everybody who was much further on than that, challenges were kind of boring. So the question was always like, can we somehow make it interesting for them as well? Could just the end be really difficult? Or,
It's definitely, yeah. I mean, it really was. It's almost in a way, it's an impossible problem to solve.
Yeah.
And there was talk at one point about doing multiple challenges, which is
that's
another way of doing it.
So, I mean, one way or another, we decided to at least experiment with it a bit and go, all right, let's find out what happens. Make it harder. Make this prize worse. Make this prize better. There was a carbon fibre. We hadn't done that before. You could win a carbon fibre the other day. We tried that out. It varies, and we carefully watch the response rates and participation rates. We brought this up on a forum somewhere and somebody said, what do you mean everybody participates all the time? No, you do, probably the people who watch this show do, yes, but there's a bunch of people out there who are still trying to sort of tempt into the Top Drives world, and not all of them actually engage all the time, so some of it's about getting them involved. And then there's fundamentally this balancing thing, right? Like, you can imagine a easy challenge with a rubbish prize, and a hard challenge with a rubbish prize, and then an easy challenge with a great prize, and a hard challenge with a great prize. And actually, none of those is perfect in a way. That's the weird thing. Like a really hard challenge with a really great prize, that seems intuitively like that lines up. Except what happens is everybody goes, oh, hang on a minute, everybody with the best garages is getting even better cars. That's no good. And they get, so that's like, oh, okay, maybe we shouldn't do that. And that's why historically we've done this slightly odd thing where some of the hardest challenges had some of the weakest prizes because the fun part was trying to beat it. But if you had a really good garage and you could beat it, maybe you shouldn't be getting the best prize that exists. So there's that trade-off to it as well. I don't think there's any perfect way to do it.
No. So I guess in a way, what we're saying, although they're sort of saying, it's got harder, prizes have got worse. I wouldn't say that's I wouldn't go as far as saying that's a general rule. That's not how it's going to be. I think we're in a phase of exploring challenges. Would be fair to say. Trying out some different things. I know there was talk about trying to link them a little bit more to kind of the big events that are going on, so that actually taking part in the challenge might give might sort of assist you in some ways with the events that are coming up. So I think people are just going to see a greater variety of challenge types and structures coming up in the next little while.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the Austin Challenge series gets this one thing going for it where the winner's challenge has these increasing requirements through the zones where you have to have one Austin, now you have to have two, now you have to have three. And the more you have, the longer you have to have been playing to do that. So the harder those challenges can get, and it's actually reasonable because you've been playing long enough to do it. Yeah. So that's like one angle of it where you can kind of turn it up a bit. And so obviously we've got to think about what do we do when the Austin Challenge series completes as well. Like what's the next version of that?
Yes.
So it's all experimentation and feeding into how should this work really? How do we use this feature to the best?
All right. Nice one. Okay, well done, Stephen, for your carbon fibre pack. Our next question comes from Matt Yakin, whose question reads, can we have collections I think we've had like a variant on this question before. For example, a Skyline GTR collection where we need to collect the Nissan Skyline GTRs, like the R32 to R35, and get a reward afterwards, like a ceramic pack, gold or money. So I mean, we've had this sort of thing, like people love being acquisitionists and getting all these collectibles, and we completely are on board with that aspirational side of the game.
I know. In a way, don't want to give we've definitely talked about the collection side of the game before, and I don't want to just give a boring answer. But it's hard. It's hard not to say that we kind of definitely acknowledge that the collection side is. I mean, it's kind of where the first kind of seed of the Top Drives came from, and I think we would be the first to accept that the game doesn't fully deliver on what it could do in the collection space in terms of playing with the idea of sub-collect. I mean, that's the great thing about the car world, is that it's got all these kind of themes and sub-themes and things that just are great source material for making collection fun, and we're not we are not making the most of that yet.
Yeah. Well, we have it in a general way, right? I try and collect British cars, and then when the British event comes around, I'm like, these are all the ones I've carefully kept and upgraded, so now I'm going to be good. So I sort of benefit in that way, but there's no like, well done, you got all these things, big tick, you get a thing. That never happens. So when we cover this a little bit I've just got my notes here, episode 11, 4 minutes 20 in, we talked about how there is technically this crazy legal problem in Japan where you can't give a prize based on collecting all these things that you get through random means.
Yes.
Right? If you have to open random packs and you might get a thing, you can't award a thing for getting a complete set of things that you can only get randomly, or something like this.
Yes.
It's like they don't like it, so we can't go there, and that's why we pulled back from a feature we originally had, which was giving out a prize car for a manufacturer if you collected all the other cars by that manufacturer.
Yes, which was kind of in a way a very sort of slightly like not very sophisticated way of doing that idea of kind of complete a particular collection and get rewarded for doing that. And like we're saying, and like it's like what's suggested, there's so many different ways. I mean, the Skyline collection would be great, and it's a thing that it's a model that people, a very iconic model, and it just works in every way. We just need to find a way. I think we said this in the past as well, that if we're going to refactor the collection side of things, or really kind of push it to the next level, that is a significant undertaking, because we want to do it properly.
Right, there's no way you can just sprinkle a little bit of collection.
No. I think it would be worth doing it properly, and doing it in a way that we can. I think we'd want to do it where we can be running it live, almost like challenges, like events, where it's like the collection side. There could be collections of the week or things like that, or it's a big creative task. The way that we want to improve it, and that's before we even get to this idea that if you're doing that, you're probably going to want to share your collections. Right, so if you're building up a collection, it feels like quite a social thing, and you want to show it off. So absolutely agree. It's, I don't know, without going into too much detail about the list, I know it's one of the big areas of the game that is probably sitting, not far from the top, I would say. Of being looked at as
out of many big things.
Yeah. So
we've got a long profile of all these things that we'd love to get done.
That just sounds like lots of excuses, but I just would like to acknowledge again that we feel there is more to come from Top Drives in that space.
Definitely. Our next question comes from Enderfailer, who's a regular commenter. Welcome back. Asking, can we have a feature that gifts a player a pack on their birthday if they enter their birthday onto their player account? Now, I mean, there were a couple of comments underneath this, and I'm sort of going to paraphrase them. I think we would see a really large spike in the number of people who just happen to have a birthday on the day we release the feature.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds nice, doesn't it? Just a little bit of a little something.
Yeah, I guess in a way, emergently, we have it in the form of our daily reward, which it sort of celebrates your top drive's birthday.
Yeah.
Aw.
So that's I guess the version of it, because it comes to much the same thing, right? There's the thing, you start the game and it's like, is it your birthday yet? Because you'll get this back. Yes, it's my birthday now.
I guess
And
if
it
you
becomes-
logged into Facebook,
maybe we could.
there would be something a slightly
Maybe
more
we
secure
get
way of
that?
doing
Would we know that?
I don't know.
I don't
if we
know.
Can get that, or
Okay.
there might be an additional permission we have to.
it. It maybe
request.
is, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, that's
Well,
me.
what
Getting
you can
into
do in the
slightly dodgy
meantime
territory.
is, as a one-time offer on this video, if you go down into the comments and write "It's my birthday," the comment that gets the most likes that just reads "It's my birthday," you can get a pack next
Whoa.
time. So enjoy fighting each other for that one, would you? Okay, we're going to move on to a question who gets a carbon fibre pack, this time from Redline Top Drives, asking, what are your plans for lower end prize cars? I think it'd be interesting as a challenge prize. Maybe once a month you could have a special challenge that's harder, gives a super or ultra rare prize car. It could be pretty fun. Also, will we ever be able to read Tim's legendary list?
What's my
Is this just
I don't know.
the
Is that
the ones
list?
that I have?
I don't know. It doesn't really say. It could be the legendary isn't capitalized.
Okay, so it
So I
could
don't know
just
if that's
be
your
the
legendary
list
car or
that
just the list.
we talk about a lot in terms
Oh,
of
right, that list.
features
Just read out
coming up
The
next.
list, yeah.
Maybe.
Wow.
I don't know.
Probably not.
Do we want to make the list public?
Yeah.
That'd be
Probably
fun.
not. Probably
I'm not even sure it exists in a form
don't
that
know.
could be read out.
Yeah.
Because it's probably a bunch of cards and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in terms of lower end prize cars, I mean that I think the Austin Challenge is probably an example of how we've used prize cars in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
Actually, going back to one of the previous points, it's also, there's some really low end prize cars because of the feature that you talked about, which was in one of the early pre-release versions of Top Drives. You won a prize car. Every manufacturer had at least one prize car assigned to it, and you would win that prize car if you owned all the other cars by that manufacturer. So with something like Smart, there's a Smart prize car
Yeah.
because it needed one.
Yeah.
And that would have been the case with Austin, but we'd already changed the game by then. So I think in a sort of slightly vague way, but I think they're probably going to be useful moving forward in terms of looking at different challenges and different ways of doing events.
Yeah, that's right. And we sort of held back on them because, long term, because we were like, there's probably something cooler we could do with these. Not sure what it is yet. And then we're trying things out. And we saw a few weeks back, we ran that sort of Pro Series kind of thing where you collected 5 smart cars that could get you the Rover, and then you get the Rovers that could get you the Superbird.
Yes.
And so we used the prize cars as this way of having people qualify. And that was kind of interesting. And we're actually going to do something like that again. More on that later this episode.
Oh, great. Okay. Then we'll move on to the next question, which comes from, I'm going to say Pave Susandja. The question reads, by the way, you get a carbon fibre pack. Well done. How do your servers deal with late joiners? Recently, some friends have told me that they could get knocked down like 100 places. Does your server notice if they're in a small lobby, so it automatically merges them with a more populated one with their points? So, late joiners.
Right.
We've had questions about them before.
Lots going on here.
Yep.
Oh, yes. So, roughly speaking, lobbies fill up sequentially. And so that means if you come in at the end, you might get really lucky and that just a new lobby just started and you just get in there and you're at the very top. Or you might be unlucky and it's just about filled up and then you turn up. And, you've got no chance at all. And then some people join late and they go, woohoo, I'm 8th. And then the event ends and they're 100th. And they're like, what happened? Yeah, which I think is probably the example there, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you there are 3 reasons that can happen, right? One, the most obvious one, is that 100 other people did what you just did and just showed up at the last second. That can happen.
Cheeky.
Yeah. The other one is there are 2 things that can cause leaderboards to not necessarily be completely up to date. So the leaderboard system was not designed to be real time, because it sort of didn't have to be. But it does, in those last seconds of an event, suddenly it's like, no, you really, really want to know. So it tries to be mostly up to date. It doesn't always succeed. There is a bug of some kind that can mean it's like there's different servers know different things, and you're connected to one, and it doesn't know that you took this loss that you did, and this other one did. So I've actually run in a final with a second device, looking at myself in the leaderboard, and playing on this one. Don't play on both, because then you get errors. That would be bad. But I could look, and I could see on this one, I'm like 9th, and on the one I'm playing, it looks like I'm 8th, which is tier 1, so it looks like I'm good. But I know like there's this other loss I've taken that apparently the server I'm connected to on this device didn't know about. So I know I've got to try a bit harder. And I think that is one of the things, especially if you're in one of those lobbies at the end where a bunch of people are joining at the last second and quickly doing those races to get an advantage.
They're just
I think that can
slightly out of sync.
really be exacerbated. And then there's the other one which pops up from time to time where if I'm not sure exactly always when it happens, but if you come back to the game and you enter an event and you don't see anybody in the leaderboard, and then you race somebody and you see them in the leaderboard, and you race somebody else and then you see them in the leaderboard, and there are other people but it just hasn't synchronized up and you don't see them. Sometimes that can happen at the very end, so you'll think, well, there were only 5 people in the leaderboard, but it's like, no, you did 4 races and could see the 4 people you raced. So one way or another, late joining is risky business, and really is something that we should fix and are looking to fix, because that shouldn't really be how you play the game. The best thing to do shouldn't be do nothing until the end.
Yes.
So we've
It's
got
not.
some ideas around
I
that.
think we've talked about it before. It's not absolutely straightforward. Just because obviously you could move. You could obviously move the end time for in terms that the event might go on, but you can only enter it, sort of half an hour before the end or 50 minutes before the end. But that's still an end point, and actually a
there's
lot
all
of what
these
you're
ways
saying
of
can still
moving
happen.
the problem around.
Yep.
Exactly. So just trying to solve that in the best way. Yeah, we're working on that.
Yep. Okay. I've got a couple more questions that I wanted to pick up. This one comes from Adam Jurasek, who asks, what role in Top Drives do you 3 have? What are your jobs? Love the game, and the show is a great way to stay informed. So in the first episode, we briefly mentioned what we all do,
Right.
but that was 9 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's fair enough that someone is asking this question. So should we go round the room
Yeah.
and talk about what we do in Hutch
so,
and how it relates to Top Drives? I guess I'll start. So I am an analyst, which means I spend a lot of time looking at metrics and trying to make sure that games are working as intended. Just checking out what everybody's up to, I guess, a little bit. It's a lot of fun. And when we started this series, I was looking a lot at Top Drives stuff. In the last few months, I've moved away a little bit to another game team, but I still regularly keep in touch, and I'm still looking a lot at Top Drives. And I'm here, so I like to stay informed. But that's what I do now.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So I am design director at Hutch. So actually, spread across all the products that we're making and the kind of early stuff that we're working on. Top Drives was a sort of, I guess Top Drives, I was sort of involved in Top Drives quite heavily from a design point of view from the very, very early stages. And then gradually it was sort of, the project was kind of taken over by other people in terms of kind of leading it as such. But as people may or may not have noticed, I'm quite into my cars. So in terms of selecting the initial cars for Top Drive, I mean, right back at the beginning, I think we had 25 in the first prototype, including a top fuel dragster, which was just hilarious because I think it had a handling score of 5.
Wow.
So it could barely get around the corners. So I'm still quite keen to add one of those back in at some point, but I digress. So I'm sort of off the project in some ways, but still very much involved in the car content side of it. So in terms of the discussions with the manufacturers, selecting the cars, speaking to Evo, deciding which cars go in, some of the correction stuff. So that is now my big role in Top Drives is everything car related.
Yeah, and I sort of head up the department of analytics and looking at what's going on in the games, and also marketing. This is a whole sort of almost hidden aspect of the game we don't talk about much, but we're actually running adverts the whole time trying to get more people to come and play Top Drives. But it costs money to do those adverts, so you kind of have to make sure that it's profitable to do that. So that's a whole big piece that takes up a bunch of time to make sure the game continues to thrive. But also back in the day, I was involved in some of the design of Top Drives. I think I made the first prototype of the game in a Google Doc.
Yeah,
I know.
It was just in a spreadsheet.
In a game jam,
Top Drives was born from a spreadsheet.
Like 3 people would log into the same spreadsheet, and 2 of them would pick which car they put on which race, and then the third spreadsheet, because I couldn't work out how to automate everything, I would run things and make sure that the scores came out correctly.
It's great, and it worked.
And it kind of this sort of works, and we should do it. And then I got a bit involved in some of the design of the game in the early stages, and then it was taken on by people who know a lot more. But I think my proudest moment was when there was a game we were referencing that had a similar sort of collection upgrading sort of thing to it, and that had the concept of slots, that you need to buy the slots to fill in all the cars, and the cost of slots got bigger the more and more you got. So initially you could buy those really cheaply, and then each extra one cost more and more and more. And I was looking at how Top Drives worked, and it had way more cars in it than this game had characters. And I thought, no, actually, it doesn't make sense for this game. I think slots should probably always cost the same wherever you are, and you always want to be collecting more cars. And now, where the game is at, I'm like, yes, that was definitely.
So everyone has you to thank for
That's
that.
right.
I know. I mean, I'd say fair to say you're at the very top of Top Drives players witin Hutch.
Yeah, I'm very engaged with the game and the community, so I'm very close to it, and I also designed the Austin challenges. That's my bit of leaning in and doing a bit of the arranging things.
This guy.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a little bit of a life lesson there for you. If you have an idea for a game, you need to make a spreadsheet. That's the way to start.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got one more question I've picked up, and it's from Cezoni, who says, honest question. How come small, modernish French cars like Peugeots have worse handling than big, heavy SUVs and off-roaders?
It's reducing everything down, reducing the entire car world and car physics down to some stats that can go, or even on the front and the back of the cards, was a challenge. It's just difficult to represent exactly what's going on, and we kind of immersed ourselves in it, and I think hopefully we feel like we've done a fairly good job on it. The handling score, I guess, where it's kind of big cars on big tires, in a way the handling score is the ultimate grip that car can generate when cornering. So a bigger car on basically bigger tires, which big cars and SUVs have, can generate more grip than smaller cars on thinner tires. Where it gets a bit more complex is that those little French cars are going to be getting the weight comes into the game in a way that is not absolutely obvious. We kind of accept that in the way it's represented, but those cars are getting a sort of almost a bit of an advantage back over those bigger, heavier cars
Because of the weight.
Yes, because of the weight. Whenever there's a succession of, so if it was like a infinite corner, the kind of those big heavy cars are going to be better at going around that. But if it's any sort of real world scenario where there's 2 corners in quick succession, or there's a particularly tight corner, or things like slalom, that is where the lighter cars are going to be getting a bit of their advantage back. It's just we just couldn't come up with a way to sort of very clearly display that.
Okay.
And it did come up when, especially all the Peugeots were added, and people were like, really? Wait, all of them have lower handling than you would expect? And we did go back to Evo and say, what are these numbers? Do you just not like Peugeot, or where did this come from? And they said, I've got this quote, that these cars, it's the driving equivalent of trying to sail a dinghy through the Pacific. So that's their expert view on what that's like.
So they're great cars, but their ultimate ability to generate grip is not as high as some of the bigger, heavier stuff.
All right.
Great.
hopefully that
Okay, that's
makes some sort of
reassuring.
sense.
Okay. Well then, thank you very much everybody for your questions, and we got a lot again. So we had over 200 comments on the last episode. Thank you so much. We're really looking forward to seeing what you've got for us this time round. Well, we're stepping away from the past and into the future because we've got things to talk about that are coming up in the world of top drives. What is the next thing going on?
Prize cars.
Prize cars.
1986 Citroen BX 40C Group B. So I think the important bit there is the Group B bit.
Yeah.
I think as anybody reasonably familiar with top drives will know that the BX40C has existed in road form in the game for quite a while, but in response to community requests, it was time to unleash full-blown Group B version of it. So this is a little bit of history lesson, I guess, but a brief history. So Group B was when rallying just got a little bit crazy.
Slightly out of hand.
Yes, didn't last for long. In fact, actually, this car was built specifically for Group B Rally Series. Only raced 3 times. Was not to be sort of fair and honest. It didn't cover itself in glory. It wasn't a particularly successful rally car, but maybe just didn't have a chance in life because it only raced 3 times, and then Group B was banned and outlawed in response to some pretty awful accidents that were happening. It's a funny looking car. I didn't realise apparently they decided to change the engine around completely. So instead of it was mounted longitudinally, which gives it this really odd, incredibly long bonnet. From what was kind of just a normal to sort of medium-sized bonnet length has been extended a lot, quite big overhangs on it. So it's which is sort of the opposite of what you would expect to see in a rally car, where you try and bring everything in and centralise the weight. But
I was going to say that must have made for a wonderful weight distribution.
But I'm probably getting a bit boring now. But like I say, it's full on 380 brake horsepower. Rally car, off-road tyres, 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. Very, very fast machine. It's what was it? I guess it's probably best just to show it in action, really. I think I was trying to kind of pick out opponents for this. If we I think a lot of people will be familiar with this. If we bring out the kind of mighty Porsche 959 Dakar, also on off-road tyres. Very powerful, incredibly fast, 0 to 60. I think we discussed previously it's had its top speed brought down in response to finding some new data, but it's still an impressive machine.
And only 1 RQ difference in top drives terms. But
yes.
It is the difference between Epic and Legendary.
Yes, and if you look at it, the 959 is 80 handling, which is not great, but it's not awful either. The 40C is on 84. If I do them around the twisty circuit in the dirt.
Right.
I think we can play this out and let it see. It's interesting that the 959 does get off the line quicker. That on tarmac, that time difference would obviously be you'd see it more pronounced than on the dirt. It's a close race, but with it being twisty circuit, that extra handling, it really comes into play on dirt or kind of off-road surfaces. It's worth mentioning here that one of the reasons that the Dakar is lower is that it's any sort of rally raid vehicle needs significantly more suspension travel than a rally car and much more than a road car, which really does, it lets it cross some incredibly rough terrain.
Right.
But in terms of ultimate handling ability,
in the corner,
yes,
it
just kind of brings that down.
Yeah.
And it's I think that's clearly demonstrated. It's a fairly close result, but the Citroen just takes it on a any sort of twisty dirty challenge. That Citroen is right up there.
When it's sturdy enough that the 0 to 60 of those faster cars can't actually come into play, because they can't go that fast without wheel spinning, then the handling is just taking it.
So cool car. I always think if we had a cool one, so I'm in a way I'm not even talking about this car now, but the road going version, if we ever did an equivalent to the Cool Wall or anything like that, I reckon a road going BX40C would be one of the most interesting ways you could drive around. I just think you could have your Integrales and your Quattros and things like that, and they're amazing cars. But
Oh yeah, but they're the mainstream
yeah,
cars.
if
Everybody
you
knows about them.
rolled up somewhere and
because
you're
there were only 10 were made.
of these, yeah, there's no actually apparently they did suffer the road going ones suffered fairly horrendous reliability issues, which
Okay.
we don't reflect in the game, obviously. And actually, I think Citroen actually bought them, almost all of them, back
Wow.
to avoid them being unleashed in public hands. But I reckon there's a few lurking out there.
You
But
think?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to go off and Google it now.
Yeah. Well, if you have one of those Evo Group B cars from Citroen, get in touch
Yeah.
because we'd love to road test it.
Good idea. There you go.
Yep. What other things do we have coming up that we'd like to tell everybody about?
Wow. So what I alluded to earlier,
Yes.
the thing we ran a few weeks back, we call the Pro Circuit races, after what Antoine Legrand says at the end of the campaign. It's like, I'll see you on the Pro Circuit races. People who still remember that, it's like, there they are. Yeah.
It wasn't just
So,
pretend.
Yeah,
It was real.
That was quite interesting. Players enjoyed how different it was. It wasn't necessarily like it didn't entirely seem to make sense. It was a little bit crazy, and also a very small number of people qualified, and so then we had to adjust like what percentage of people got the prize car, and it was, it's a new kind of event. It was the first time we were figuring it out. So we're going to do something like that again, a simpler version this time, in that there will be 8 opportunities to win a rare prize car. So that's what I was talking about, one of these less extreme ones. That's the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am.
Great.
8 opportunities to win that. That's a lovely looking car.
It is lovely.
And you'll need to win 5 of them to qualify for the final event, where you'll be able to win a legendary car, not a prize car, but a legendary prize.
Actually, sorry, just briefly, it's worth saying it's the 1970 white
1970,
one, just because
yes.
there's a few.
You'll see it in
few
game
Trans Ams,
as marked as a prize car, so you'll know which one it is. And I think the way it's going to work as well, it will be 2 of the ways you can win it will be in challenges, and 6 will be in events. So mixing that up a little bit. And then there was also a thing about in the previous one. It was like, is it a good idea once you've collected enough to then not collect any more, so that more players qualify? Or should you try and win as many as you can and knock other people out? The way it was set up, you were better off trying to let other people qualify, so there would be more people to pad out the final event. But it seemed like people didn't go for that cooperative thing. People were really just winning all the ones that they could. And so this time around, we're going, okay, that is the correct way to do it. Basically, if you could knock out more other people and stop them from getting them, you will do better off in the end. That's the way we're coming at it this time. So there should be a post detailing this going out about the same time the show comes out, I think.
Might already be up.
Yeah, so you'll be able to see exactly how that works. So this is, and it's going to be on top of the regular Tri-Series schedule, so it's not going to take the place of one of the existing 2-week Tri-Series that we have. It's going to be overlaying that whole thing as well. So there you go. It's going to be fun.
Alrighty. Cool. So is that all of our news?
Can I just add briefly that I'm
Yeah.
really upset now that I found Bonhams sold
Yeah.
a road-going BX 4TC
Yeah.
with 180 kilometers on the clock for 14,950 euros in 2005. So I know that's a long time ago.
You haven't just
That-
missed it.
No, I haven't just missed it, but my guess, I'm going to just throw a figure out. I reckon that car now would be 150,000 euros.
Good
would be my
estimate.
guess. If anybody can provide a more accurate figure for what, road going Citroen BX 4TC would cost today, please add it in the comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Nice.
I really want it.
Yeah, and again, if you do have one or know someone who does, we want to see it. So get in touch. Okay, I suppose then that it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, thank you very much, as always, for coming around, giving us all the fantastic questions and the responses. It's great to hear from you all. Thank you very much for playing Top Drives. We'll see you next time on the Top Drive Show.